mobile banking app. Non-HSBC fees may apply.
Revive FM
94.0 on the radio,
on your mobile,
and online.
Hello, good morning. You are locked into Revive FM 94.0 on the Power Hour with your host today, myself, Louise Power. This show is about community matters, diversity and inclusion, a platform for women, leadership, entrepreneurship and inspirational stories. And I am so glad to be here today. And even more so, we're going to be doing things a little bit different today because normally I'm asking all the questions on the Power Hour, but today I have some very special guests, an organization that I connected with that wanted to interview me about my own experiences around discrimination. And we had a really, really good, really great connection, great conversation. And we thought, what better than to put the two things together, so the Power Hour and their organization, Blueyse, so that we can then take things forward together. So for no further ado, I'd like to introduce you to both Julie Hemels-Hoff, the chief executive and founder of the organization, and Mo, who is a project associate at the organization. They are joining us today from the Netherlands. So welcome, good morning.
Yeah, good morning. Thank you so much for the great introduction. It's great to be here. Yeah, perhaps it's nice if we both also, before we dive in, do a little bit of introductions of our.
That's exactly what I was going to do. I was going to ask you if you could both introduce yourself, and then if you could introduce the organization and what it is you do and the campaign as well.
Yeah, in that case, then I think I'll start. And first of all, lovely to meet you, Louise, and thank you so much for having me. This is actually quite exciting for us because I think this is also a different way that we're doing the interview as well. So really excited, and yeah, we're looking forward to how this goes. But first of all, yeah, my name is Mo. My name is actually Mohammed, but I prefer Mo. It's quicker, it's easier, and I've grown up with that. I grew up in the UK, which is why I think you probably hear it. And yeah, I chose to go to the Netherlands 5 years ago. So yeah, I was raised in West London, which is where I grew up with my family, of course. And since then, decided to go to the Netherlands to study and found a good place to work, found a good place of living here. And since then, it's been great. And obviously, while being here, got connected to Julie through Blueyse, the company I think she's going to talk to you more about. And yeah, through the company, I'm now a project associate. And one of the things I'm doing is working on this campaign. So I think obviously I'm going to let Julie talk about the campaign a bit more. But honestly, pleasure to meet you, Louise. And yeah, looking forward to this.
Pleasure to meet you, Mo. And a pleasure to hear that you're as well about London. I didn't realize that you were from West London. So yeah, it's really, really, really glad to meet you. I'm not sure where's warmer, London or in probably the Netherlands today.
Warmer. Oh, good question. I think today it's warmer in the Netherlands, but don't believe it. It's always rains here. So if you come in here for the weather, I would not recommend, but probably today's warmer. But
lovely, lovely to see you.
Right?
Yeah.
Oh, nice, cool. Always happy to meet another Londoner.
And Julie.
Yeah. Thank you for the introduction, of course, for having us, Louise, after our great connection over LinkedIn. Thank you for inviting us. And I started Blueyse 5 years ago through personal passion and really seeing the need and the urgency to do something on the topics of inclusion and especially equity, how to create a more equitable society and how can you do that in your everyday life, in work. And that's kind of where Blueyse came from. And we're doing that now every day and are on a very big mission to realize societal change. And I really think that through storytelling, we can do that. And already on like the small people that we can touch, the lives, the small actions. And the Pull the Card campaign is one of those actions. Every year in Diversity Day in the Netherlands on the 1st of October, we launch a campaign First it was unseen, then it was you are what you speak, and now it's the discrimination card, where we aim to empower people to address and speak out and actually pull the card when somebody says, oh, are you pulling the card on someone? To pull the card and address the situation at hand and address the behavior, so people can learn. And it's not about labeling people as bad or anything. It's about starting conversations and finding common ground and common respect for each other. And yeah, today we have the pleasure of interviewing you, Louise.
I know.
Yeah.
Which is
rapid fire.
Which is really nice, because I'm always on the other side of things. So it's different. And I just hope to, it's going to be a very organic, very authentic conversation. A safe space for us to discuss, what it is that you're trying to achieve, but also hopefully inspire lots of people and some takeaways for decision makers that, through this radio show and podcast as well that you're doing, that, there'll be some takeaways and opportunities for people to learn.
Yeah, for sure. Learn from different perspectives and widen their scope, I would say. Perhaps it's just good to start as an introduction. We of course will be asking some questions, but if you feel like this is something that I prefer not to talk about or am uncomfortable with, please let us know. They will move away and address directly. Mo will do most of the questions, and I'll jump in here and there.
We'll have a nice organic conversation, and we'll see where it leads us.
Yeah, exactly.
Super.
Thank you, Julie. Thank you so much. And I would just like to say thank you so much for reaching out. Thank you for connecting with me, and for asking to interview me, and for us really to get to this stage. I think we're all doing our part, aren't we? And it's brilliant that we've been able to have this opportunity, and we never know how far, a show like this will take us. So it's great.
Yeah, and thank you as well for the opportunity to come here as well and to do it through here, which is really fun, and looking forward to it.
Brilliant. Let's go.
Yeah, well, I guess I'll start things off then. Yeah. So Louise, the part of the campaign is basically to gain another person's perspective, really looking at things from the other side of people. So when we sort of want to sort of look at diversity and inclusion, one of the things we sort of looked at is why people sort of have a problem, why people are discriminated against. And it usually stems from basically people don't really see things from the other side. And I feel like if we can gauge a better understanding of people, then that probably helps on the long run on the diversity of all. So basically we want to learn things from your perspective, from your side of views, and sort of like what's your daily life and what your experiences are. So I think the first question I'm going to start with is, have you ever been discriminated against? Is there any microaggressions you want to talk about, or is there anything specifically, or do you want to talk about things as a whole?
Yeah, I'll answer the latter part of the question, the first part of the question, which is something specific.
Yeah.
It's I think it was probably a thing that has happened to me throughout my life, but once I became educated about microaggressions and discrimination, and I guess my eyes were open a bit more to what was happening, then you become more susceptible and sensitive to what's happening around you. I'd really like to share what happened when I first started my business. I started my organization, and at the time I was a single mother with a child. It was my first business. You can imagine all of the anxieties that you have being a single parent, about, money and, investing in the business and the risk that you're taking. But part of the business, my business had a social arm, which was about helping and supporting other women and girls into the tech industry, which for me was so much overarching as a passion, so as it was the commercial side of the business. And I had an opportunity to have a space within an ecosystem of some really large corporations. One of them was a global bank. The other one was a global insurance company, and a nationwide, when I say nationwide, like in terms of the country, accounting firm as well. So big, massive global brands. And I had this opportunity to work with them as an ecosystem and work with them within the same space as well. So I arrived at this building, multi-million pound building within London, and I went to reception. It was my first day. You can imagine I'm bringing in my banners, you know, all of the bits and pieces that it is that I need. And I had all of the bits and, you know, all of the stuff to make me feel comfortable. But I didn't take them straight up to the area. I put them to one side. So they could have just been anybody's, presumably. And I went to reception and I said, you know, I'm here and who I am, and I'm the director of the organization. And they were so excited for me to be there. And they were telling me how, you know, great our partnership's going to be and all the things that's going to happen whilst I settle in. And they sent me off in the direction to go off and make myself comfortable. And that's what I done. I walked up the stairs and I went into the area where I'm meant to be sitting. And as I got to the top of the stairs, I was stopped by one of the gentlemen that worked at the global organization, who said that I was in the wrong place. He said that, you know, I don't think that you're meant to be here. So I said, no, I am the director of iOrbit. I've come to come to work, come to sit down. And I was just literally, I'm playing out to you exactly how I was, because I was confused. And he said, no, I don't think so. He said, are you here for the reception role? Because they had been advertising for a reception admin role within the building. So I said, no, I'm here. I'm in the right place. The reception sent me here. This is where I'm going to be sitting. He said, no, I really do think you need to go back downstairs. You know, he repeated his organization's names, which I won't say on air, and you're in the wrong place. So I thought, well, I must be wrong, because, you know, I started to get this imposter syndrome now, you know, where I'm thinking that, you know, I'm an imposter in my own organization. I'm an imposter in my own day-to-day outgoings now. Am I meant to be here? And I went back downstairs to reception and I explained that I think I went to the wrong place. The receptionist was, you know, very polite, very forthcoming, but sent me back. So then I've gone back up again, and I was stopped again by the same person who said, you know, can I ask, you know, what it is that you're doing here? Because I really do think that you're in the wrong place. And I said, well, I've been sent back because I'm the director of, you know, iOrbit, and this is where it is that we're supposed to be. So he said, oh, are you the director for the organization that's joining with us as an ecosystem? And I said, yes. And he was so embarrassed. And he said, oh, I'm so sorry. I thought, you know, you was here for something else. And you can imagine how, you know, I must have felt being my first day, you know, for business, my first day in that space. You know, it was a devastating feeling, because you almost feel like you're not welcome and you're not supposed to be there. And yeah, it was incredibly biased of him to presume that perhaps I am here as a receptionist, as opposed to the fact that I'm there as the director.
Yeah. Well, why do you think he thought that? What is there an unconscious bias that he might have had?
Yeah, I honestly believe that his unconscious bias, representation matters, right? So if he hasn't seen any Black women in the tech space as a director in that building or otherwise, then he may have presumed that I wasn't the director, and he may have been, you know, tech, especially at that time, was a white male dominated industry. And he may have had a presumption that the person that was the director for that organization was what he had created in his own mind
Yeah, exactly.
and his own experience. So most definitely a bias. And yeah, I think gender bias and also racial bias as well.
Yeah. What's really interesting is when you came on to the bit where he was surprised and he was so shocked and sort of he probably stood back. How do you,
Yeah.
how do you think he really felt at the moment, like when he realized, like, was it so? What do you think emotions are going through his head?
I think he probably felt very embarrassed. I think he also probably felt surprised because, you know, he'd made an assumption. We have to be very careful about the assumptions we make. And we later developed a really good working relationship, actually. But I think at the time, he probably was challenged by his own biases.
Yeah, exactly. But it's really nice to hear that you had a good relationship afterwards, I think.
Yeah, yeah. I think, you know, he learned a lot from me. He apologized profusely. I mean, even the next day, I think he went home and thought about it.
Yeah.
And I even went on and supported that global organization with mentoring and coaching for their graduates. So I think I had an opportunity to break the psychological status quo.
Yeah.
And to really get him personally thinking about the way in which he interacts with others. We now understand that we have a name for those things now, which are microaggressions. We also understand that people can be covertly or overtly racist. And that was the one experience I had with that one person. However, I don't believe that would have been a unique thing because it was so natural for him he didn't have any inhibitions about speaking to me that way.
Yeah, I can imagine, especially with you being new in your field as well. But I feel like it's always sort of that unconscious bias, that sort of lack of perception, and also that assumption that sort of leads you to behave a certain way. But I'm really happy to know that he was sort of apologetic and you built a good relationship afterwards. Because I feel like sort of coming from the campaign, we really do want to still keep the relationships and also increase them. Because I feel like we can not sort of like disinclude people, but really bring them in and make them understand better. And we can have better relationships from it. So really good to hear. But if you were to go back to that, would you do anything differently? Would you explain differently? How would you be able to go about it if you were to go back?
Very good question. What would I do differently? I probably would have stood my ground a lot more. I've grown a lot. I don't give people the power now to make me feel like an imposter, to make me feel like a minority, to make me feel as though I am othered. But I think that takes work. I think that takes personal development. I think that takes maybe several experiences and I guess some confidence. However, I'm really conscious of the fact that not everybody would be confident enough to break through those barriers. There are some people that one time is a little bit too much, and actually it could have been enough for somebody to think this is not the space for me. And maybe tech industry says the doors and the windows are open, but actually they're not, they're closed, and they're closed for Black women. And what was I thinking? Why did I ever come here? And that's the end of it. So just because I overcame those barriers, we cannot presume that everybody would do that and that somebody's dream wouldn't be shattered because of that action. Yeah,
it's interesting to think about. There's another reality where you went downstairs because the person told you to go back, and you just went back. You just walked out the door because you thought there's only the receptionist that told you to go back. And it's obviously like, yeah, you had the strength to do that. But as you said, there's experiences, there are situations where people don't come back. They just accept it and go, which is really bad to think about. But it's nice that you're here now where you are because you pulled through. You were strong enough to challenge it at the time.
100%. You know, I've got a favorite quote, that I posted recently on my LinkedIn by the late Shirley Chisholm. She was a politician, and she said, if they don't give you a seat at the table, bring a folding chair. And I think,
Love that.
I think, when you go into spaces like the tech industry where, in that space you are predominantly a minority, I found myself walking around with this folding chair much of the time.
Really good. And did that experience, I think you came onto it a bit, did that experience sort of help you in other experiences similar? You don't have to go into the other experiences, but did it help you like persevere?
Most definitely. They did help me. It did help me to persevere. And once I started to really learn about microaggressions and different ways to articulate things, because racism is as such sometimes it's not even what someone says, it's how they behave.
Yeah.
And that's why it's so difficult to prove in employability and law and in the courtroom, because sometimes it's a feeling that only the person that is black or brown knows, and only the person that's actually creating the action knows what they're doing. So I think I had to pick my battles, but it certainly did help me along the way, and I sort of used it as my superpower sometimes, rather than looking at it that I'm in the room and I'm the only person. I used to think I'm in the room and I'm the only person that's brown in the room, and I need to make a change. There's more people like me in the room.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Which is really, really good to hear. Really good to hear.
Yeah.
So if there was advice you could give to other people who are going through these battles, obviously stand firm, what would you give them?
I'd probably, going back to what I said, I'd probably say stand firm, but also question people, ask them why. Sometimes we need to kind of go back to people and say, ask them if sometimes when they're asking something which is a bias or covertly or passively racist, sometimes we need to kind of confront that head on and ask them why. I think the other thing that was really, really supportive along my journey is I had some great allies, some brilliant allies. And sometimes it would be my allies that would step in for me.
Yeah.
My allies amongst communities of people that may be majority in that room, and they would step in for me, or I would say to them, this happened. How do you think I should handle that? Because I know how it feels to be a black woman, because I'm a black woman every single day.
Yeah.
However, an ally of mine, a really good friend of mine that's a white female, for example, will see things from her lived experience and the lived experience of, for example, of her peers. And some of the behaviors that I may be having a conversation about will be very well familiar to her.
Yeah.
And she would say, do you know what? I've seen this before. And I think you should handle it like this, because I've seen this behavior before. Do you know what I mean? So
yeah.
I think speak to your allies, and sometimes face things head on. But also, if it's extremely way out of order and it's over and it's affecting your mental health, then do something about it. That's use your policies, use your procedures, use the law as well. Don't sit there and tolerate behavior that is discriminative or harmful.
Yeah, exactly. I think that definitely leads me on to my next question, because I feel like here in the Netherlands, I feel like there is a battle going on in terms of handling microaggressions, handling discriminations, and I think there is a space where people want to sort of look into it. But in the UK, because I haven't been back in a while, and I really do miss it. But how do you think it's going in the UK? Are they trying to sort of combat that?
Yeah, I think there are organisations that, I heard something yesterday. and it really stuck with me. Somebody posted it on LinkedIn, and it said, "Are you transactional or are you transformable?" And I think it's like, again, some organizations are, it's a bit of a tick box exercise. It's something we have to do. We're doing it this month because it's Black History Month, and we're going to raise a profile for staff that we consider to be minorities in the organization that are Black and brown for this month. We will raise the profile. We will create a space for cultural inclusion, and whatever it is across that scope for Black History Month. However, we all understand that this is an everyday progressive change thing. So if you're really going to, that's like a one-time transaction, for example. But if you're going to transform something, then that's something you incorporate in the agenda every single day, in your strategy every single day, in your mission, in your vision, your anti-racism statement, and all of that. So I think there are some organizations that are facing that head on. And one of the things that is quite bold, I'd like to think, is where organizations are creating and are putting forward an anti-racism statement, because that's saying we're not standing for it, and it should be saying we're not employing anybody that is coming in with racist views, and we're not going to be having relationships with people like that. And I think there's still some work to go. But where we are, I think we're still progressing. And I think the UK by no means is, I think what happens in the UK sometimes is that, I can't compare it against the Netherlands because I'm not familiar with the Netherlands. So I'll use the US and the UK, for example. Sometimes things happen in the US regarding racism very much in your face, very, very overt. Yeah. And straight away, it looks very, very damaging. It's aggressive. However, just because the racism that happens in the UK can be very passive and covert, but just as harmful. Because we have to remember that it isn't just things that are said. It's cultural, it's institutional, it's systemic. That's policies, that's procedures, and that is, local sometimes rules and regulations as well. Even though overarching we have the Equalities Act that protects us, it's still there. Do you know what I mean? So I think there's something about British culture that needs to be bolder and more aggressive in a
right?
confrontational about anti-racism.
Yeah, I totally agree. Definitely. I guess I'll lead the conversation into sort of the other side now. So like thinking about it, so say like there is someone who's overtly racist, someone who's overtly sort of like damning down, misogynistic. Is there obviously the immediate response is to not hire them, is to immediate response not really to exclude them from the circle. But is there a door? Is there a way in which we can change the perspective, or is there a way in which like we can sort of just get to them and make them, I don't want to say see sense, but obviously like make them see that their ways are different, and also that, and then you should change with how society is. Do you think there's a door there, a bridge that we can?
100%. My door's always open for that.
Yeah.
Always open for that, because you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah, exactly.
And we are products of our environment. And each one of us has biases. Nobody is exempt from biases. And I think that's the first thing we need to all take accountability for, and make those admissions, first of all, to ourselves. Yeah. So my door is always open. I think it's important to create a safe space. I do that in the work that I do as a consultant, but just amongst my peers as well. It's important to create a safe space. Let people get things wrong in those safe spaces. Let us learn from each other and correct each other in those safe spaces. I think The difficulty is when there's an ignorance there, and the person is like, if it's not fixed, it's not broken for me, so I don't really care. And that's when, there's nothing you can do. That's when you do have to use your policies, procedures, and your laws and your everything else. However, if somebody is, I've had people openly admit their racism, and we've been able to have a really very productive learning experience, right?
Yeah.
And it's not just with racism. Some people have had extremely difficult experiences with biased things that have happened to them, to do with different things. And I think it's really important to just allow that learning experience, but everybody has to be open to that.
Yeah, and it takes a lot of strength, of course.
It takes a lot of strength, but we do have to be mindful that to protect, depending on the conversation, people that are on the receiving end of that learning experience that are Black and brown do also need to feel safe.
Yeah.
As well.
Yeah.
So setting up a scenario like that where people feel safe and supported, and it's a learning experience as opposed to somebody speaking at them, an agreed kind of learning experience. But I absolutely believe the door has to be open. And some work that I've been involved in has been where people are able to do that anonymously.
Yeah.
Because people are scared. We know that some people do get scared about how they'll be judged, and what could happen if I say something. So if you can't do that in a one-to-one scenario and it's in front of others, then do it in an anonymous situation.
Yeah, just be open. And it's really nice what you said, because obviously it takes a lot of strength to sort of to open that bridge, to open that door, because obviously, like, from the other side, it's difficult for someone like you in certain situations to sort of bridge that gap with someone who has different views. But it does take strength and it does take patience, but also this understanding, really, which is something that everyone should leave the door open for. But obviously, me and Julie have been doing a lot of interviews with other people, learning so much about different people, where even my perspective has totally changed on some things, and which I'm really happy about. But has there ever been a conversation you've had with someone and they've said something that you just didn't know, and you're like, oh wow, I had no clue of that. Has there ever been experience in that sense?
It has, yeah. I've had more than one experience where someone, I think, oh, is that like in terms of your own biases? You mean like in terms of and you think, oh my goodness, I didn't realize that. Most definitely. But what I was just wanting to say to you is, this is live radio, so we're going to have a very short break. This is the only break that we take.
I didn't know. Yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah.
This is, but it's the only break we're going to take, and then it's a very quick break, I think, for about a minute, and then we'll come back, and then I'll answer that question. Is that okay?
Awesome.
Yeah. So please do not touch that dial. You are locked into ReviveFM 94.0 on the Power Hour. You're locked in with Louise Power, Julie Helms, and Mohammed, all the way from Amsterdam, speaking all things pull the card, discrimination, racism, and Black History Month. We'll be right back. Do not touch that dial.
Wills, Islamic law of inheritance, or an Islamic verdict on any other issue. The Muslim Sharia Council is at your service. We provide official certification, and our experienced and highly qualified imams are available to provide you with guidance when needed. MQI London is based at 292 to 296 Romford Road, Forest Gate. We are open from Monday to Friday, 2 to 4 p.m. or alternatively call us now on 0208 257 1786.
Revive FM.
94.0. On the radio
On your mobile.
and online.
The light of dawn is from the radiant soul.
Hello and welcome back. Welcome back to the Power Hour on 94.0. You are locked into the 94.0 with your host today, myself, Louise Power. Welcome back to the show. Welcome back, Mo. Welcome back, Julie.
Hello.
Thank you.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh,
we
Great.
great.
can hear you.
Brilliant. So before the break, you was asking me, because you said you've learned a lot, you know,
Yep.
yourself and Julie have been interviewing lots of people.
Yeah.
Things have happened and even you were a bit like, oh my
Yeah.
gosh, a bit taken back. And you asked me whether or not I've been in a scenario where that's happened to me.
Yeah.
And I've been completely inspired by friends that I've met along the way. So one of the directors, who's a great friend of mine, is a director of a disability charity. And but you know, his story is incredible, really, really incredible. He was born able-bodied, and then sadly, as a child, he caught polio in South Asia growing up, and then lost the ability to use his legs. And yeah, I mean, you know, when I met him and he began to speak to me about his accomplishments, about all the things with which he had overcome, even with this disability, I was absolutely blown away. Because as an able-bodied person who doesn't even think about every day getting dressed, going into buildings, walking around, how I interview people, who I'm going to work with, how I'm going to get my shopping, what I'm going to do, let alone starting an organization, let alone being a director, employing people, going all over the world, and then the barriers as well that he shared with me, and actually intersectionally, he's male, he's brown, he's Asian, and he has a disability. So, you know, it was completely inspiring and not something you see every day.
Yeah.
So for me, it was that wow, like taken back moment, like, oh my goodness, you
Yeah.
know. And you know, we're great friends. So, you know, I think we need to leave ourselves open for those wow factors. We need to leave ourselves open for accepting difference and cheerleading people and encouraging difference. Wouldn't the world just be a boring place
Yeah.
if everybody done the same thing? If we all went to the same university, if we all spoke the same way, we all like the same music, we all like the same food, and everything at work was everybody at work done things in exactly the same way. It's just not the way that life was meant to be. You know, none of the birds outside look the same.
There's such a power and strength in diversity, right? Like people come from different backgrounds, can provide different ideas, and just it's more fantastic for businesses, for your life, for social. Honestly, it's more to be had really with more diverse and more inclusive cultures. But it was really interesting about what you said before, because like obviously it leads us to sort of like what we were understanding about privilege, right? And like obviously it's just sort of a term that's thrown around now, and sort of maybe it's sort of like someone has a certain privilege and someone has other privileges to others. But one of the things that we sort of looked at is what do people think privilege actually is? So one of the things I want to ask you is, what do you think privilege is?
Wow, such a good question, because I really attach privilege to struggle.
Yeah.
You know, I really attach privilege to struggle. And I could talk about this for a long time.
What 20 minutes, I guess.
I could talk about this for a long time. My goodness.
Yeah.
Growing up, I had quite a colourful upbringing. I say colourful because it made me who I am today, but by no means were there was difficult moments. And yeah, I can give you I'm going to give you a few. I'm going to give you a few.
We're happy to have them,
I'm going to
honestly.
give you. I'm going to give you a few examples. Yeah, I mean, socioeconomically, the area I grew up in, there was disparity, there was poverty. Some of my childhood, I also spent some time in local authority care, which is, I don't know what you call it there in the Netherlands, but it's where you have a social worker and you don't live with your family and someone else takes care of you. And it was really, really tough. As an example of my circumstances, some people may say that I'm an exception to the rule because people that have had that kind of life perhaps don't actually choose to do, what I've done or not even, I'm not going to use choice because choice is even, we can't even say choice because you don't have a choice when you're a product of your environment, but get an opportunity is more, have access to, it's really breaking the mold and that's tiresome, and I think my story isn't unique, and I think that's sadly it isn't unique, and Black women, the whole angry Black woman thing. As I got older and I went from girl to woman and really understood some of those journeys and walks that Black women from socially deprived backgrounds and communities have to go through. It's like, how can you exemplify, is that the word? How can you emulate this kind of soft and very privileged personality if you've had such a very hard and difficult struggle? And that isn't just because something that you have in your childhood. That is every day showing up Black or brown in a community where you're a minority without all of the other things. And I remember someone saying to me once, oh, maybe you need to be a bit softer. And it was like, I couldn't be softer because I didn't have a soft life. And what is softer?
Yeah.
What is your interpretation of softer? The person that was speaking to me was speaking to me from a place of privilege. They were speaking to me from a place of having a very soft, bouncy, cotton-wooled experience, right?
Yeah.
So that was really interesting. Another thing that happened was when I've got one child, he's 11 now, brilliant, amazing. Thank you, brilliant, amazing child. But when I was having my son, I'm not sure if it's the same in the Netherlands, but here in the UK, women from minority groups are extremely more susceptible to discrimination in maternity. Mortality rates are higher for the woman, for the child, just in general. And when I had my child, I have to, I'm not exaggerating where I thought I was going to die, because I was a Black woman. I mean, that's how terribly I was treated. Now, I'd heard about other people's experiences, but I don't think you really even understand or can grasp that concept until you're in the hospital having a baby. And I've also heard this many times. I was saying that I was in pain. I was saying that I was in trauma, but I was being overlooked. And that was for me, spoke privilege again, because none of my peers, friends, and family that were from a white British demographic had experienced anything like that. But so many people, friends and family that were black and brown women had experienced things like that. But my friends and family from the white demographic had not. So it was like, that's privilege. It's privilege that I'm alive. It's privilege that my child's alive. Why? Why isn't there equality and equity bringing life into this world? Do you know what I mean? Why is it that black women are not listened to about the pain they're in? Why is it that so many things go wrong in the hospital and people are dying, not giving medication or intervention, or the babies are not being seen to, and the training is not being done enough on brown skin. So even some of the observations that you would notice on somebody with paler skin, the doctors aren't noticing on the browner and darker skin, right?
Yeah.
So when they're missing things as well. And then again, there's another layer. Who are the doctors? Shouldn't we then have more people from different from the black and brown demographics that then would notice it, because them themselves have that skin, right? So we could go on and on and on about how it is these things are being flagged up and they're being missed. So, privilege is, the only thing that I have in my life to compare it to is struggle. And I'd like to share something with you, actually, about maternity and another thing that happened. So I know somebody that's a midwife. Now, I just want to put a caveat out there. I'm not medically trained, and this is what I was told, and I'm completely sorry if in any way that I'm wrong. I know somebody that's a midwife, and basically what had happened was, and I also know a patient that was in maternity. So this particular patient was having some real difficulties during the pregnancy, related to their mental health. Okay. And I had this bias in my mind when I was told about this patient, that this patient was black. Because of my experience, I was like pretty certain. I was the first person to say, "Oh, that's a black woman," because of my own experience. And actually, what I learned through this conversation blew my mind. What I was told was that actually, statistically, this particular condition that the patient had, who was a white British woman, was related to, because of research and everything else that's done in that medical field. When I heard it wasn't a black woman, I was very, very surprised. And then they explained there's a reason for that. And they said what they found, because of privilege and because of the fact that, but now by no means are we saying that people from other demographics don't struggle, because of course we know that socioeconomically it affects all people from all places. But because we're speaking specifically about this subject, right? Because of privilege and the demographic where this particular patient comes from, this particular mental illness was related to the fact, right, that white women from that demographic, that was the first time that they'd experienced trauma in their life. So this particular illness affected them more in that way. And the reason I was blown away is because it opened my eyes to, again, the fact that Black women living in deprived social economical circumstances have probably had trauma from, you know, going back. We're talking about years
Yeah.
of trauma. However, somebody that's coming from a place of privilege, and we have to say this with the most empathy, for some people, childbirth would be the first trauma.
Crazy to think about, right?
Yeah, because they've never experienced, that would be the first time experiencing trauma. So it made sense to me why this particular thing may be affecting them in that way and not Black women. So it's, you know, again, it shows the inequalities and sadly even how it had this reverse kind of effect on, with the fact that Black women maybe didn't get this. And the only reason they wasn't so susceptible to having this particular thing was because they'd already experienced lots of trauma.
Yeah, I'm guessing it's changed your perspective from being a mother and also giving birth, right?
Yeah.
And how do you feel about it now in terms of like looking at other younger mothers and also other young people growing up? Is it something that still has a fear, draws fear from you, or?
Most definitely, I think it definitely. I think it's part of the reason why. You know, I just have one. You know, and I think it's not a unique story.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I'd love to tell you it was a unique story, but you just have to pop up on Google and you'll see so many other stories where, unfortunately.
Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah. Sure.
No, but I think now, like, I think maybe we should go on to maybe about you now, because I think we've gone through experiences, who you are, where you can be, but you now, like, do you? Well, it's gonna be a really interesting switch with the question. Are you now privileged? Do you feel where you are? Is it something you can do more for other people?
I think that I'm in a good. I think I'm in a good space. I think that I'm working. I've got lots of different hats. You know, I'm the president of an organization called Changing the Chemistry, where it is our objective to increase diversity on boards and pivot diversity of thought. I'm on another board in New York called the Female Advocacy Foundation International, where we support women and girls globally affected by war and violence. I've been a governor in the local schools, as well as had my own organization and consulted and supported organizations all over the world, and won an award from the United Nations and New York Bar. So, I consider myself to be extremely privileged to have met some awesome, amazing people and be in a network of, fantastic people and put myself in a situation where, I'm able to, I'm employable. But I certainly don't see myself as privileged overarching, because I think it's every day, I'm still living amongst systemic and institutional compromise, even with the status that I've created for myself, even with the network that I've created for myself. It hasn't disappeared. You know what I mean? But I think that it's something that's ongoing, like I was saying earlier on when we started, and it's about us being transformable and not transactional. Do you know what I mean? So, yeah, I think that, life has developed, and, in life, there's been great things that, we all experience. But if I was living perhaps in the Caribbean or in, or in West Africa, where I know that people in the Caribbean originated, then I wouldn't notice. I'd be going about my day with lots of different people that look like me, and the struggles would be different. They would be just specifically socioeconomical. They would be just specifically around other things, whatever that may be. However, when you are living in Europe, and you are a minority group in that country, I think that the things that you have to think about are everyday things.
Yeah. Thank you. I think I have to say, Louise, like, thank you so much for giving us the time to interview. What's it been like to be interviewed from the other side, to be the person being questioned?
It's been really interesting. It's been really interesting. And do you know what I done? I specifically didn't look too much at. I know that we spoke very briefly about what we might discuss today, but when I do my show, I don't generally give people questions. I will just say we're going to be speaking about this and the reason for doing that is because I try to keep it as authentic as possible. So I didn't go over too much around, questions and all of that. I just wanted it to just flow.
Yeah.
Has it flowed for you?
Yeah, it's been very authentic and it's been really nice to listen to. You have so much to give, which has been fantastic and fascinating to listen to, really.
I think we can speak for forever on these topics and learn more about you and from you. And also, you indeed make, at least I'll speak for myself, very at ease. So thank you for that.
That's
you indeed have a very organic, authentic, and valuable conversation.
I do have one more question for you, Louise.
Yes.
So I feel like to finish off, I feel like the best question, I think I always love hearing it, is what do you think the future holds for diversity, for inclusion, and you think it's a positive future? Do you think it's going to be an impactful one? What do you think? And also, how do we change it?
I think we've got a positive outset on things. The world's getting smaller, okay, so I do think that we've got a positive outset on the way that diversity is going to be for the future. I also think that even if, even the resistance, I'm going to call them the resistance.
Yeah, good name. That's a great
name. even if we get resistance, there's going to be laws that will not allow certain things to continue, right? And people are being more unapologetic about saying, I should be there. This isn't equal. This isn't right. This isn't fair. And the power of why that's going to happen is mostly, I would say, or partly attributed to the mobile phone. Because that mobile phone is so powerful that the things that used to happen in the dark, behind the scenes, that people thought that couldn't be seen, couldn't be heard or recorded, are now for everybody to see. Right? So I think that's part of it as well. The fact that the inequalities that have raised the profile for diversity, equity, and inclusion, there's part of that is attributed to the fact that we see more. It's not the fact that it was never happening, but we're exposed to, and I would like to think that the majority of people, wherever they come from, my family is very, very mixed from all different races and backgrounds, and my friendship groups are just the same. And I'd like to think that the majority of people are just good. The majority of people will see things from, mobile phones or internet platforms or whatever, and just decide, just by human basic nature, nothing to do with the color of our skin, that it's wrong.
Yeah.
It's just how we're made, For the most of us that are good, we just want to live in a place that's good and good for everybody. So I think that there are things that are going to change. There are things that will get better. And I'm a positive person. I mean, the cup's always half full with me. But by no means is can we sort of sit back and think it's all going to work itself out by itself? Unfortunately, there's going to be those of us, like the three of us, that are going to have to be part of that and then create legacy change for those other people that continue the work after us.
Yeah. There's still a lot of work to be done, but I always feel like resistance comes from a lack of understanding, right? And I feel like we just need to bridge the gap of just making people understand more, open up, and just let everyone see each other for who we are. And I feel like that's the way.
And I am your organization is called Blueyse, isn't it? I'm saying it in the right way. There is I'm going to do something there. Just tell you because we spoke about what people can do, right? So there is a Jane Elliott. She is an American diversity educator, and there is a please look at Jane Elliott's Blue Eye experiment.
All right.
Oh, yeah. The
Have
blue
you
eyes,
seen-
brown eyes.
Yes, that's it, Julie. Yeah. And it's a brilliant learning way of us learning from each other. Just like by eye color, privilege by eye color is so powerful.
I'm unaware of it, but I'm really curious though to check it out.
Please do check it out because it's a brilliant way, like you said, Mo, of learning and of people doing more than tolerating each other. Doing more than tolerating each other is actually like living amongst each other, learning from one another, until we get to a place where we don't recognize something different because we're just being.
Yeah. People from different sides, different perspectives. We just
and we're appreciating and valuing the differences.
And knowing that you're not always right.
So say that again, Julie.
And knowing that you're not always right.
Knowing that you're not always right. Knowing that you're not always right. How powerful. And that we can learn from others. Who wants to be right all the time? Because you'll never learn, isn't it? Part of getting it wrong is knowing how to do it again. And we learn that as a child, doing our laces, riding a bike and all of those things. So so as we're coming to a close now. Would you like to say anything before I just sign us off?
No, just thank you so much. It's been such a powerful, authentic, and it's an amazing interview. It was lovely. I've had a great time interviewing. Thank you so much for having us and having me as well. Lovely to meet you and love to speak to you.
You're most welcome. I hope that your audience, your network, people that are connected with you, those that are learning from you, learn a lot. Any questions? I'm more than willing to follow up. If you need a part 2 based off of this,
We'd love one. Let's do a sequel next year. Let's go. Absolutely.
I know a topic.
yeah, exactly. And just thank you again. And let's stay in touch. I'll be interested as well for any feedback or
so nice.
Anything that your audience and your network says about when they listen to it. And by the way, this is it. This is a footprint in the sand. You know that.
Yeah.
This is going to be digitally available.
Yeah, it's out there
as legacy, right? So you can play it as many times as you need to and share it as many times as you need to. So we'll all be coming back to this in 10 years' time and listening to Mo's question, my answer.
Yeah.
And let's see. Let's see as part of research, right? Trajectory. Let's see.
Yeah,
has it changed? Right? We can come back to this and we can do it again in some time to see how far we've got since this conversation. Because this is going to be a footprint digitally forever, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So thank you so much for logging in to the Power Hour today. It has been such a wonderful, wonderful conversation. It's inspired me to remind myself about where I've come from, remind myself about all the people that came before me so that I could be here and sat here in this seat, the one that I was dragging around with me all the time, my folding chair. And thank you for Mo and Julie. for, the privilege of this conversation and just for connecting, really, transactional and transformable connection, real authentic connection. You have been locked into the Power Hour today. We'll be back again, same time, same place, next week, Thursday. And we look forward to seeing you then. Thank you ever so much, Julie and Mo. And I'll be signing off now. Have a nice day. And you've been locked into Louise Power and the Power Hour. Speak soon.